Good afternoon. I'm now walking to a place called More, spelt More, and just left Sigulda after a couple of days there. It was raining pretty much continually, so I didn't want to move on. It's quite depressing, didn't really inspire me to keep walking, but it should be 4 clear, if not sunny days ahead now, so definitely the time to make some progress, try and get as close to the Lithuanian border as possible. So as you can see behind me, I'm walking on a kind of a track, unpaved road, which seems to be the case for most of the minor roads in Latvia. I learnt a little bit about the country from my hosts, or 2 of the guys working at the campsite I stayed at, had a few beers with. They were telling me how something like 10% of the population actually lives in the UK, which I can believe, but I didn't actually, or I haven't met any Latvians myself. Quite a few Poles, Romanians, even some Hungarians and Bulgarians, but can't say I've ever met a Latvian. But apparently there's about 200,000 or 300,000 living in the UK, and this means it's actually quite a large voting bloc for the country. They kind of decide, or they will have a big say on, who becomes the next president, but yet they're actually expatriates, they're not living in the country. So this is quite an interesting quandary or product of globalization, or the European Union, or whatever. There's a car coming, so the sound may go for a little bit. And they also informed me about some of the wildlife in Latvia. Something that they actually referred to, or a girl there referred to as Bambis. So she meant deer, and some of these deer apparently can grow larger than a horse, which I didn't believe until Janus showed me some pictures on his phone of some Latvian hunters and also of these animals. And I'm no expert, but I would say it's probably what we would call an elk, or a moose in English. But yeah, huge creatures. And apparently, and this may have been what I heard the other night actually, they make a noise that sounds, this is the words to quote the campsite owner, they make a noise like an angry drunk man screaming, and apparently can actually be quite hostile to people. So I'll bear that in mind. And I was also told about lynxes. They have lynxes here which wait in trees and can be a danger to small people, by which I presume he mainly meant children. But again, the forest still has some surprises here. Only about 10 or so bears in the country, and they're mainly concentrated along the Russian border, which I haven't got to yet, and probably will not get that near to. Although I am heading, on the advice of my hosts for the last 2 days, to the eastern part of Latvia, which they called something like Latgala or something, but they said it's basically a different country, and they didn't really specify what was good about it, but they said it was good, said it was worth visiting. Great scenery, lots of homemade booze apparently. They're quite proud of their nation's beer, with every town or every area having its kind of own local tipple, which of course is something that's just starting to come back in Britain with the whole microbrewery thing. But here it's well established and is a tradition. And the guy there actually had a kind of sideline, well, as a hobby rather than a business, making all sorts of wines and alcohol. Beetroot wine was his speciality, and also a kind of coffee liqueur. So I had quite a lot of fun on the campsite making those things. But because of the rain, actually, the rain did get quite heavy. I actually thanks to their kindness, got moved to a kind of little cabin with a mattress in it, so that was good. I've only slept in a bed about a dozen times in the last 3 or so months, so that was good for the back, good for the legs. So feeling fresh today and really knocking out some kilometres. Another car coming, so I'll be quiet for a minute. But it's good to work in kilometres after the miles of the UK, because obviously a kilometre is less, and when you see 10 or 12 on a sign here, it's a lot different from when you see 10 or 12 on a sign in Britain. So distances, although they're going to be larger in the end, when taken in small bites, are actually much smaller and more manageable. I can't think of anything else to say at the moment, so I'll see you when I get there.